The owl had conquered 47 worlds across the outer rim. They stood 8 feet tall with black shells covering their bodies and 4 arms that ended in blades sharp enough to cut through steel. Every species in the galaxy called them demons, and for 10,000 years, no one had ever defeated them in battle. They ruled through fear, and fear had never failed them. When their warship descended through the clouds above Heron IV, the owl expected nothing different from the 100 invasions before. The human mining colony of New Clarion held 12,000 civilians, mostly families of workers who pulled precious metals from the mountains. They had a small defense force of 50 soldiers with basic weapons. The owl brought 200 warriors. The battle lasted less than an hour. Commander watched from his command ship as his warriors tore through the colony defenses. The humans fought bravely, he admitted to himself, but bravery meant nothing against superior numbers and strength. By the time the sun began to set, the defense force was gone and the civilians had been gathered in the central plaza. This was standard procedure. Hostages kept populations quiet and broke the spirit of any rescue attempt. 300 light-years away, Captain Grant received the distress signal. He stood in the operations room of Outpost Kappa 7, a small military station that watched over this sector of space. Grant was 42 years old with gray beginning to show at his temples and scars on his hands from 2 decades of combat. He commanded a unit of 8 Terran Special Operations soldiers, the finest warriors humanity had ever produced. The distress signal played on the main screen. A woman's voice, shaking with terror, described the attack. She mentioned the black-shelled aliens with 4 arms. She mentioned the screams. Then the signal cut to static. Sergeant Cole stood beside Grant. She was his demolitions expert, a woman who could turn everyday objects into weapons of destruction. Her face showed no emotion as she listened to the recording, but her hands had curled into fists. "How far?" she asked. 6 hours at maximum speed, Grant replied. Reinforcements. Grant had already checked. The nearest fleet was 3 days away. Command had told him to hold position and wait. They said 8 soldiers could not fight 200 AL. They said it would be suicide. Grant turned to face his team. They had gathered without being called, all 7 of them standing ready in the operations room. He saw Corporal Dean, his sniper, a quiet man from Texas who could hit a target from 2 miles away. Private First Class Amy Torres, their medic, who had saved more lives than Grant could count. Specialist Park handled communications, a young soldier who could hack any system ever built. Sergeant carried the heavy weapons, a giant of a man who treated his gun like a beloved pet. Corporal Lisa specialized in infiltration, able to move through shadows like she was made of them. Private Jake was their close combat specialist, a soldier whose speed with a blade had become legendary. And Specialist Tanya Brooks handled tech warfare, turning enemy systems into weapons against their owners. Grant looked at each of them in turn. "Command says we wait." "Command is not there," said. His voice was deep and steady. 12,000 civilians, Torres added. "Families, children." Grant nodded slowly. He had known what his team would say before he asked. These were soldiers who had signed up knowing they might die. They had trained for years to become the best humanity had to offer, and they had not done any of that to sit safely while innocent people suffered. "We will be outnumbered 25-1, Grant said. "The AL are stronger, faster, and better armed. We will be fighting on unfamiliar ground against an enemy that has never lost a battle. If we go, some of us may not come back." Cole stepped forward. "Captain, with respect, you are wasting time." A small smile crossed Grant's face. We leave in 20 minutes." The stealth was called the Night Hammer. It was designed to slip past enemy sensors and deliver soldiers into hostile territory. As the team loaded their equipment, each member performed their own rituals, cleaned his rifle with careful precision. Cole counted her explosives 3 times, sharpened his blade even though it was already perfect. Torres approached Grant as he studied a map of the colony on his tablet. "Do you have a plan, Captain?" "Get there, kill the enemy, save the civilians." "That is not much of a plan." "It is enough of one." Grant looked up at her. "The Al have conquered worlds by making people afraid. They expect broken spirits and easy surrender. They have never faced soldiers like us." "And what makes us different?" Grant considered the question. He thought about his years of training, the battles he had survived, the friends he had lost. He thought about the families in that colony, the children who were probably crying for their parents right now. "We are different because we do not fight to survive," he finally said. "We fight to protect. There is no greater motivation in the galaxy." The Night Hammer lifted off from Outpost Kappa 7 and jumped to faster-than-light speed. Inside, the team sat in silence. Some slept because experienced soldiers knew to rest when they could. Others checked their equipment one final time. Cole was reviewing the colony blueprints, looking for places to set traps. Brooks was studying everything known about AL technology, searching for weaknesses. 6 hours later, the slowed as it approached Heron IV. Grant moved to the cockpit and looked through the viewport. Below them, the colony of New Clarion was burning. Smoke rose from dozens of buildings. The streets were empty except for the massive black shapes of AL warriors patrolling in groups. "Take us in low," Grant ordered the pilot. "Use the mountains for cover." The descended through the night sky, its stealth systems hiding it from enemy sensors. Grant returned to the cargo bay where his team was already on their feet, weapons ready, faces set with determination. "Listen carefully," Grant said. "We are not here to win a war. 8 soldiers cannot defeat an army, but we can make them bleed. We can make them afraid. And we can buy time for those civilians until help arrives." 3 days is a long time, Park said. "Then we will have to make every hour count." Grant checked his own rifle one final time. "Remember your training, trust each other, and never forget why we are here." The touched down in a valley 3 miles from the colony. The rear ramp lowered, and cool night air rushed inside. Beyond the ramp, Grant could see the distant glow of fires and hear the faint sounds of alien voices. He stepped onto the soil of Heron IV and looked toward the colony. Somewhere in that burning settlement, 12,000 humans were waiting for someone to save them. They did not know help was coming. They did not know that 8 soldiers had just arrived with every intention of teaching the demons of the galaxy what it meant to threaten humanity. "Move out," Grant ordered. The team disappeared into the darkness, 8 shadows moving toward an army. The maintenance tunnels beneath New Clarion had been built for workers to access power lines and water pipes. They were narrow, dark, and filled with the smell of dust and old metal. For Grant and his team, they were perfect. They moved single file through the underground passages, their boots making almost no sound on the concrete floor. Cole led the way with a small flashlight, checking her tablet to follow the colony blueprints she had memorized during the flight. Behind her came, then Torres, Park, and finally Grant at the rear. No one spoke. They communicated through hand signals developed over years of training together. A raised fist meant stop. A pointed finger meant move. A flat palm meant danger ahead. After an hour of crawling through the darkness, Cole raised her fist. The team froze. Ahead, a faint red glow filtered down through a grate in the ceiling. Cole moved forward slowly and pressed her eye to the opening. She held up 4 fingers, 4 enemies above. Grant moved up beside her and looked through the grate himself. He saw a wide street lit by the flames of burning buildings. 4 AL warriors stood in a loose group, their blade arms catching the firelight. They were even more terrifying up close than the reports had described. Their bodies were covered in black shells that looked like armor grown from their own skin. Their heads had no visible eyes, just smooth surfaces with small holes that Grant assumed were for hearing or smelling. When they communicated, they made clicking sounds mixed with low growls. One of the owls suddenly turned toward a building and made a sharp clicking noise. The others followed, and all four disappeared through a doorway. Grant waited 30 seconds, then signaled his team to continue. They traveled another half-mile through the tunnels before reaching their destination. The central plaza was above them, and through another grate, Grant could see what he had come to find. The colonists had been gathered in the open square, thousands of men, women, and children sitting on the ground surrounded by owl guards. Many were crying. Some were injured. All of them wore the same expression of hopeless terror. Grant counted the guards. 20 owl formed a ring around the hostages, their blade arms ready to kill anyone who moved. On a raised platform at the far end of the plaza stood a larger owl wearing ceremonial markings on its shell. This had to be the commander. As Grant watched, raised one of its arms and pointed at a man near the front of the crowd. 2 warriors grabbed the man and dragged him to the platform. His wife screamed and tried to follow, but other colonists held her back, knowing it would mean her death too. Spoke in its clicking language, and a translation device on its belt converted the sounds to English. This human attempted to hide a communication device. He tried to call for help. "Let this be a lesson to all of you." The blade came down. The man fell. His wife's screams echoed across the plaza. Grant felt his jaw tighten. Beside him, his hand had moved to his knife. Cole was breathing hard through her nose, fighting to control her anger. The standard approach would be to wait, study the enemy patterns, find the perfect moment to strike, but Grant had seen enough. Every minute they waited was another minute these people lived in terror, another minute when might decide to kill again. "Change of plans," Grant whispered. "We go now." He gave rapid orders through hand signals. Would circle around to the far side of the plaza, getting close to the hostages. Would find an elevated position for his rifle. Cole and would set up near the main owl patrol routes. Brooks and Park would stay with Grant for the initial assault. Torres would position herself to reach any wounded civilians. The team split up, moving through the tunnels to their assigned positions. Grant gave them 15 minutes to get ready, the longest 15 minutes of his life. When his watch showed the time had come, Grant spoke into his communication device. "Take the shot." Half a mile away, Dean lay on the roof of a warehouse. His rifle was a custom weapon he had carried through 12 deployments. He had named it Sarah, after his daughter back on Earth. Through his scope, he could see the owl standing closest to the hostages. He exhaled slowly and squeezed the trigger. The sound of the shot rolled across the colony like thunder. The owl warrior's head exploded in a spray of dark fluid. Its body stood for a moment, then collapsed. For 3 seconds, nothing happened. The other owl seemed frozen, unable to process what they had witnessed. In 10,000 years, no one had ever attacked them while they held hostages. Every species they conquered understood that fighting back meant the deaths of loved ones. The fear of losing family was supposed to break all resistance. These humans had not received that message. Grant burst from a tunnel entrance with beside him, their weapons firing. Park and Brooks came from another direction, adding their guns to the chaos. Across the plaza, Cole attacked a patrol that had been approaching to investigate the first shot. The owl finally reacted, but their confusion cost them precious seconds. 3 more fell before they began returning fire. Their weapons shot bolts of superheated plasma that scorched the air, but the humans were already moving, never staying in one place long enough to be targeted. Had reached the edge of the hostage group. "Stay down," she shouted at the colonists. "Help is here. Stay down and do not move." Fired again and again from his rooftop. Each shot found a target. The owl could not locate him, could not understand how death was reaching them from such distance. On his platform, watched the battle through cameras mounted around the plaza. He saw his warriors falling. He saw humans moving with a coordination and precision that should not be possible. They did not fight like desperate survivors. They fought like predators. "How many attackers?" he demanded. His lieutenant checked the sensors. 8, Commander, only 8. Felt something he had not experienced in centuries, a cold sensation in his chest that made his forearms twitch. He recognized the feeling from ancient stories told by his ancestors. This was doubt. "Call all warriors back to the plaza," he ordered. "All of them now." The lieutenant hesitated. "Commander, that would be 200 warriors against 8 humans." "Do it." As the order went out, Grant saw AL warriors streaming toward the plaza from all directions. He had expected this. He touched his communication device and spoke calmly. "Fall back to secondary positions. Phase 2 begins now." His team disengaged smoothly, disappearing into buildings and tunnels before the reinforcements could arrive. They left behind 12 dead AL and a commander whose certainty had begun to crack. Stood among his gathered warriors and looked at the bodies of the fallen. 12 of his finest soldiers killed in less than 5 minutes, by 8 humans. "Find them," he commanded. "Find them and bring me their heads." 200 AL spread out into the colony, hunting for the humans who had dared to challenge them. They did not yet understand that they were not the hunters in this battle. They were the prey. The streets of New Clarion became a maze of death. Grant split his team into 4 pairs, each assigned to a different sector of the colony. They knew these streets now, had memorized every alley and building during their approach through the tunnels. The AL knew nothing. They searched in groups of 10, thinking numbers would protect them. Numbers meant nothing against soldiers who had been trained since childhood to kill. Coal and moved through the industrial district like ghosts, would step out of shadows, making just enough noise to attract attention. When the AL patrol turned toward him, they walked directly into the trap Cole had prepared. The explosion shook buildings 3 blocks away. When the dust settled, 8 AL lay dead and had already guided Cole to their next position. "That was a beautiful one," whispered. "Save the compliments. I have 7 more charges and a lot more targets." On the other side of the colony and operated with silent precision. Moved through buildings like smoke, climbing through windows and across rooftops to find targets. She would identify a patrol, calculate their path, and send coordinates too. Never missed. The AL began to realize something was wrong when patrols stopped reporting in. A squad would turn a corner and simply vanish. Another would enter a building and never come out. The communications channels filled with confused reports and demands for information that no one could provide. Brooks had made that confusion worse. She had hacked into the AL communication network within the first hour, and now she used it to spread chaos. She played recordings of dying warriors on random channels. She sent false orders that led patrols into kill zones. She made the 200 AL feel like they were fighting an army instead of 8 soldiers. "They are panicking," she reported to Grant. "I am hearing warriors refuse to enter the residential sector. They call it the death zone." Grant allowed himself a small smile. He and Tors had spent the last 2 hours turning the residential sector into exactly that. They used the homes of colonists as ambush points, striking from doorways and windows before disappearing through connected buildings. Tors was a medic, but that did not mean she could not fight. She moved beside Grant with her rifle ready, covering him as he engaged targets and then taking her own shots when opportunities appeared. "Ahead," she whispered, "6 of them." Grant saw the patrol moving down the main residential street. They walked slowly, their blade arms raised, their eyeless heads turning nervously at every sound. These were warriors who had conquered worlds, and now they were afraid to walk through a human neighborhood. Grant raised his hand and pointed to a building on the left. Tors nodded and moved into position. When the patrol reached the intersection, Grant opened fire from the right while Tors shot from the left. Caught in the crossfire, the AL had nowhere to go. 3 fell immediately. Two tried to charge Grant's position, but Tors dropped them before they could take 5 steps. The last one turned to run, and Grant's final shot caught it in the back. "Clear," Tors said. "That makes 31. Across the colony, and Park had set up a defensive position in a warehouse. His heavy weapon was designed to destroy vehicles, but it worked equally well against AL armor. When a large group of warriors tried to assault their building, opened fire. The weapon roared like an angry god. AL warriors who had survived countless battles were torn apart before they could reach the door. Those who tried to retreat found Park waiting with precise rifle shots. When the noise finally stopped, 23 AL lay dead in the street. "Moving to secondary position," reported. His voice was calm, almost bored. Received the reports in his command ship above the colony. 43 warriors lost in less than 3 hours. He had never experienced such losses against any enemy. The AL were supposed to be the hunters, the predators that made all other species tremble. But tonight, his warriors were being slaughtered like prey animals. His lieutenant approached hesitantly. "Commander, the warriors are requesting permission to withdraw to defensive positions." "Withdraw," his voice carried dangerous anger. "We are AL, we do not withdraw from 8 humans." "Commander, with respect, they are not ordinary humans. Our warriors are afraid to enter certain sectors. They speak of ghosts, of enemies who appear from nowhere and vanish without trace. Some are calling them demons." Struck his lieutenant with one blade arm, cutting a shallow wound across the smaller warrior's shell. "We are the demons. We have been the demons for 10,000 years. These humans are nothing but animals who have not yet learned their place." But even as he spoke, doubt gnawed at him. He had studied humans when his fleet first entered their space. The reports had called them soft, weak, short-lived creatures from a small planet. They had no natural armor, no claws, no special abilities. They should have been easy conquest. The reports had not mentioned this. They had not mentioned soldiers who fought without fear against impossible odds. They had not mentioned the cold efficiency with which these 8 humans were destroying his army. Made a decision. He would go down to the surface himself. He would lead his warriors personally, and he would kill these humans with his own blades. "Prepare my shuttle," he ordered. "Call all surviving warriors to the industrial sector. We will end this tonight." In the shadows of a ruined building, Grant listened to the communication intercept Brooks had provided. He smiled grimly. "The commander is coming down," he told his team through their private channel. "All remaining AL are gathering in the industrial sector." "How many left?" Cole asked. "About 140 plus himself." "Those are still bad odds, Captain." Grant thought about the families in the central plaza, still surrounded by guards, still living in terror. He thought about the 3 days until reinforcements would arrive. His team was wounded and exhausted. Their ammunition was running low. The smart move would be to continue guerrilla tactics, hitting and running until help came. But Grant had seen the way the AL were breaking. Their fear was spreading faster than their losses. If he could crush them completely, if he could make them so afraid that they chose to leave, the civilians would be safe tonight. "We are not going to hide anymore," Grant said. "We are going to meet them head-on. We are going to show them what human soldiers really are." "Captain," Tors said quietly, "that might get us killed." "Maybe, but those people in the plaza are counting on us, and I did not come here to fight carefully." Grant began moving toward the industrial sector. "I came here to win." One by one, his team followed. 8 soldiers walked toward 140 enemies, ready to finish what they had started. The main processing facility sat at the heart of the industrial sector like a metal fortress. It was 3 stories tall with thick walls designed to contain dangerous mining equipment. Grant had chosen it for their stand. His team worked fast to prepare the building. Cole placed her remaining explosives at key entry points, set up his heavy weapon to cover the main approach, found a position on the 3rd floor where he could see the entire street. The others took positions at windows and doorways, creating overlapping fields of fire that would make any assault costly. Tors checked everyone's wounds as they worked, had taken a plasma burn to his left arm during an earlier ambush. Park had cuts on his face from flying debris. Even Grant was limping slightly from a blow he had taken in the residential sector. But no one complained. No one suggested retreat. "They are coming," Brooks announced. She was monitoring AL communications from a corner of the main room, her fingers moving across her portable computer. 137 warriors plus. They will be here in 10 minutes. Grant gathered his team for final instructions. Their faces were covered in dust and smoke. Their uniforms were torn, but their eyes held no fear. "This is the moment," Grant said. "Everything we have done tonight leads to this. They outnumber us more than 15 to 1, but numbers are not what wins battles. Courage wins battles. Training wins battles. The will to protect innocent people wins battles." He looked at each of them. "We have all of those things. They have none." "What is the plan, Captain?" asked. "Hold this building. Make them pay for every step they take toward us. And when they break, because they will break, we finish them." Cole snorted. "That is not much of a plan." "It is the only one we need." The AL army arrived as the first light of dawn touched the sky. They filled the street in front of the processing facility, row after row of black-shelled warriors with their blade arms raised. At their head walked, larger than the others, his ceremonial markings glowing faintly in the dim light. He stopped 50 meters from the building and spoke through his translation device. "Humans, you have fought well, better than any species we have ever encountered, but this ends now. Surrender and I will grant you quick deaths. Continue to resist and I will make you suffer in ways you cannot imagine." Grant's voice came through a speaker Brooks had rigged at the entrance. "You came to our colony to teach us fear. Instead, you taught us what we are capable of. Now we will teach you something." "And what is that?" "What it feels like to lose." Made a clicking sound that might have been laughter. "You are 8, we are 137, you cannot win." "Then come find out." Raised his arm and the AL charged. The first explosion caught the front line of warriors as they reached the building's entrance. Cole had buried charges under the street's surface, and now she triggered them with perfect timing. A dozen AL fell in the blast. Then the guns began to speak. His heavy weapon roared from the second floor, cutting through AL armor like paper. Fired again and again from the third floor, each shot finding a target. The rest of the team added their rifles to the defense, creating a wall of fire that the attackers could not pass. The AL kept coming. They climbed over their fallen comrades, pushed forward by the weight of numbers behind them. Some reached the walls and began cutting through with their blade arms. Others found windows and tried to force their way inside. Met them at every breach. His blade moved faster than the eye could follow, cutting through aliens who had never faced an opponent skilled enough to challenge them. He fought with a fury born from years of protecting innocent people, from memories of missions where he had arrived too late to save everyone. He would not be too late today. "Left side," Tors shouted. "They are breaking through." Park and Brooks shifted to cover the new threat, their rifles barking in the enclosed space. Tors dropped her medical kit and picked up her own weapon, adding to the defense. She was a healer by training, but today she would protect her team. The battle raged for what felt like hours. The AL threw themselves at the building again and again, each assault costing them warriors they could not afford to lose. Grant moved from position to position, supporting wherever the line seemed weakest, his rifle never silent. Cole had set charges inside the building too, on support columns and doorways. Whenever AL managed to enter, she collapsed sections of the ceiling on top of them. The facility was falling apart around the team, but so was the enemy assault. His heavy weapon finally overheated, its barrel glowing red. Without hesitation, he dropped it and picked up a standard rifle. When that ran out of ammunition, he drew his sidearm. When that emptied, he grabbed a metal bar from the debris and used it as a club. Had long since lost count of his kills. His shoulder ached from the rifle's recoil. His eye burned from staring through the scope. But he kept firing because every shot meant one less enemy threatening the civilians in the plaza. Appeared beside Grant, her face covered in blood that was not her own. "Captain, they are pulling back." Grant looked out a shattered window. She was right. The owl were retreating, stumbling away from the building like wounded animals. The street was covered with their dead, dozens and dozens of black-shelled bodies lying where they had fallen. Stood alone in the middle of the carnage. He had not joined the assault himself, watching instead from a position of safety. Now he stared at the processing facility with what might have been disbelief. Grant activated the external speaker again. "Your warriors have had enough. They do not want to die for your pride. Let them go, take your ships and leave this world. The killing can stop." "You think you have won," his voice carried across the street. "You have killed many of my warriors, yes, but I have ruled for 1,000 years. I have conquered more worlds than you can count. I will not be defeated by 8 humans." "Then come inside and prove it." Was silent for a long moment. Then he spoke again, his translation device giving his words a cold, flat quality. "No, I will not enter your trap, but I offer you something else. Single combat, you and me. If you win, my warriors will leave this world and never return. If I win, you will die knowing your friends will follow." Grant considered the offer. Was 8 feet tall and covered in natural armor. He had 4 blade arms and 1,000 years of combat experience. Fighting him alone would be suicide. But the civilians were still in danger. The battle had weakened the owl, but they still outnumbered the team. If the fighting continued, someone Grant cared about would die. "Captain, do not do this," Torres said. "We can hold out. Reinforcements will come." "In 2 days," Grant replied. "A lot of people can die in 2 days." He looked at his team, at the soldiers who had followed him into impossible odds and somehow survived. "If I can end this with one fight, I have to try." He walked toward the building's entrance, stepping over debris and fallen enemies. Behind him, his team watched in silence. Grant emerged into the morning light and faced the demon across a field of bodies. "I accept," he said. The surviving owl formed a circle around the 2 fighters. Grant counted roughly 80 warriors remaining from the original 200. They watched in silence, their eyeless faces turned toward the center where their commander prepared to kill the human who had caused so much destruction. Grant removed his rifle and handed it to who had followed him outside against orders. He kept only his sidearm and combat knife. Clicked something that sounded like amusement. "Your weapons are pathetic against my armor," the owl said. "I have killed thousands with these blades. What makes you think you can defeat me?" Grant did not answer. He simply raised his knife and waited. Attacked with terrifying speed. His 4 blade arms slashed through the air in patterns designed to overwhelm any opponent. Grant dodged the first strike by centimeters, feeling the wind of the blade passing his face. He rolled under the second and came up inside's reach, his knife seeking gaps in the black armor. The blade scraped uselessly against the shell. Grant barely avoided the counterstrike that would have taken his head. They circled each other, testing, probing for weaknesses. Had the advantages of size, strength, reach, and armor. Grant had only his training and his refusal to die. The second exchange was faster and more brutal. Caught Grant with a glancing blow that opened a cut across his shoulder. Grant responded by firing his sidearm at point-blank range, the bullet cracking his armor but not penetrating. "You cannot hurt me," said. "Your weapons are nothing, your strength is nothing, you are nothing." Grant wiped blood from his eyes. "Then why are you talking instead of fighting?" The owl roared and attacked again. This time his fury made him careless. Grant slipped past a wild slash and drove his knife into a joint where two armor plates met. Screamed, a sound no human had ever heard from an owl warrior. Dark fluid leaked from the wound. Grant pulled his knife free and backed away. First blood. Impossible, hissed. No human has ever wounded me. I am not any human. They fought on. Grant took more wounds, cuts, and bruises that would have stopped most soldiers. His left arm hung uselessly after a blade strike cracked the bone. His vision blurred from blood loss, but he refused to fall. Every time thought he had won, Grant found a way to continue. He blocked strikes with his broken arm. He used debris from the battlefield as improvised shields. He fired his sidearm until it was empty, then threw it at its face to create an opening. The watching owl had fallen completely silent. They had expected to see their commander destroy the human in seconds. Instead, they watched a wounded, bleeding creature refuse to die. Was breathing hard now. Purple blood leaked from 3 wounds Grant had managed to inflict. His movements had slowed, whether from injury or exhaustion Grant could not tell. "What are you?" demanded. "You should be dead 10 times over. Your body is broken. Your weapons are gone. Why do you keep fighting?" Grant stood unsteadily, his knife still gripped in his remaining good hand. "Because those people in the plaza are counting on me. Because my team needs me to win. Because humans do not surrender just because we are hurt." "That is madness." "No, that is humanity." Raised all 4 blade arms for a final strike. Grant saw the opening he had been waiting for. As the blades came down, he threw himself forward instead of away. 2 blades cut deep into his back, but Grant was inside's guard now, too close for the owl to use his reach advantage. Grant drove his knife upward into the gap beneath his head, the place where the armor was thinnest. The blade sank deep, made a choking sound. Grant twisted the knife and pushed harder, using the last of his strength to drive it home. Arms dropped, his massive body swayed. "This is for New Clarion," Grant whispered. "For every world you conquered, for every innocent person you killed." "Vel." Grant collapsed beside him, his vision fading to black. The last thing he saw was running toward him, shouting something he could not hear. He woke in a medical bed, with Tors leaning over him. "You are an idiot," she said. Her eyes were red from crying. "A complete and total idiot." "Did we win?" Tors helped him sit up. Through the window he could see the central plaza. Colonists were walking freely, embracing each other, some dancing with relief. There were no owl in sight. "They left," Tors explained. "Right after you killed, they just knelt down, all of them. Then they carried their dead back to the ships and flew away." "They did not attack." "No," said they looked at us differently after the fight, like they were seeing us for the first time. Tors paused. "He thinks they were scared." Grant thought about that. The owl had ruled through fear for 10,000 years. They had made entire civilizations tremble at the mention of their name. And now, for the first time, they had felt fear themselves. He wondered what that would mean for the galaxy. The reinforcement fleet arrived on schedule, 3 days after the battle. They found a peaceful colony, grateful survivors, and 8 wounded soldiers who had done the impossible. The commander of the fleet, Admiral Susan Hayes, personally visited Grant in the medical facility. "Captain Grant," she said, "I have been in this military for 30 years. I thought I had seen everything. But what you and your team accomplished here will be taught in academies for generations." "We just did our jobs, Admiral." "No, you did much more than that." Hayes handed him a tablet showing a transmission intercepted by military intelligence. "This is being broadcast across OWL space." Grant read the message. It was a warning from an OWL elder to all warriors of the Dominion. The message was simple and direct. Avoid the species called human. They are not prey, they are not predators, they are something else entirely. They are what demons fear. The Dominion has officially declared human space off limits. Hayes continued. For the first time in 10,000 years, they are afraid of someone. Grant thought about his team, about Cole and her creative explosions, and his impossible shots, Tors who healed and fought with equal skill, Park and Brooks who turned technology into weapons, who never stopped firing, who moved like a shadow, who protected the innocent with fury and skill. It was not just me, Grant said. My team won this battle. Every one of them is a hero. I know, Hayes smiled. That is why all 8 of you are being promoted, and the colony wants to build a monument in your honor. Grant leaned back against his pillow and closed his eyes. Outside, he could hear children laughing in the plaza that had been a prison just days ago. Families were reuniting. Life was returning to normal. This was why he fought, not for monuments or promotions, for the sound of children laughing, for the freedom of innocent people to live without fear. He thought about the Al Elder's warning. Humans were what demons feared. It was a powerful statement, but Grant knew it was not quite accurate. The Al did not fear all humans. They feared a specific type of human. They feared the ones who would travel across the galaxy to save strangers. They feared the ones who would face impossible odds without hesitation. They feared the ones who would never stop fighting, never surrender, never give up. They feared soldiers like Grant and his team. And they were wise to be afraid. Somewhere in the depths of space, the Al ships carried word of their defeat back to the Dominion. For the first time in 10,000 years, the demons of the galaxy looked over their shoulders and worried about what might be following them. The era of human expansion had begun, and the universe would never be the same.